In the past, whenever I saw the word RUNGLER in in an explanation about a module or some posts on the internet, I never really wondered too much about what it was. I suspected it to be some kind of weird, random sort of thing, but I didn't do any reading about it, nor did I have any modules that incorporate the concept. So it's just recently when I got these nibblers in my rack, and I started seeing things pop up, like the video that Stasma made for Schlappi, that I started to wonder about this RUNGLER thing. What is it? Why does it exist? What's so unique about it, etc. And well, I first started off trying to patch a RUNGLER just based on my assumptions about what a RUNGLER is, which is, well, akin to trying to paint a Bob Ross painting by just listening to the explanation instead of watching the video. So I ended up with something completely different. But now that I've watched the video that Stasma made a little bit more in detail, and I got some feedback from Eric, I also watched the video about generative music that he posted. I understand the concept a little bit more, and especially this post made by Richard on ModWiggler, I'll post the link to that in the description box, increased my understanding of the concept of a RUNGLER a lot more. So let's follow what Richard wrote in his post and just patch up a quick RUNGLER right here, right now. So we need a shift register. We can use NIBBLER as a shift register without using the counting part if we just keep all these switches down. Let's reset it as well. And then we need to send in 2 VCOs. Let's just use 3 body here. One will be used as an input for the shift register, and the other one will be used as a clock for the shift register. If I'm correct, the shift data is the input of the shift register on NIBBLER, and the shift input is acting as a clock. And I think for this to work, we need to be in the asynchronous mode. Otherwise, the module will always wait for a clock pulse at this input here. So let's keep it in the asynchronous mode. Subtract or add doesn't really make that much of a difference, if any. So right now, this is, I think, already wrangling. So let's monitor this stepped output wave. So one essential part of the RUNGLER concept is that you use certain parts or all of the steps in the shift register. Let's slow it down. So you use these binary pieces of information to do something with. In NIBBLER, you can use this stepped output. There's a phase shifted stepped output here as well. We'll just use this one without a phase shift. It's kind of a weighted output that adds all these different bits together. And they, each of these outputs or steps represents different voltages, which gives us, if you add these together in one wave, gives us this interesting stepped wave. I think Richard called this a havoc wave. And let's listen to it. Right now it's going really slow because I'm using this VCO here. I'm using the square wave, but with NIBBLER, I don't think it matters which wave you use. You can see NIBBLER shifting away, but let's just use the square wave. So this one is used as kind of a clock for the shift register. So right now it's going very slow. We should be getting some kind of audio right now. Even if it is LFO rates, we should be hearing the clicking. Let's increase the clock rate. Can zoom in a bit here. And whenever I change one of these VCOs, turn this down. Now in the Benjolin, which is probably the most famous device that includes a RUNGLER, at least that's what I make of the text about it. I have never used a Benjolin. So in the Benjolin, I think the last bit, the last part of information in the shift register, it's always cycled back to the input. Well, at least when there is no new information available. But in the Benjolin, the last bit is just manually summed back into the first stage by using an XOR input, which NIBBLER also has, which brings it another step closer to being an actual Benjolin. Or well, you can use it as Benjolin, I guess. Now another thing that the Benjolin appears to be doing is using this havoc wave to also frequency modulate one of the VCOs that's being used. So let's use this first one. Bring this up. So now this VCO is used as the data input for the shift register. And it's also being frequency modulated by the output of the frequency, of the shift register, which gives us this kind of a feedback situation. That creates these wonderful things. now instead of just monitoring and listening to the output of NIBBLER, we can also just listen to the output of this VCO here. Let me fetch a cable that's long enough. So let's listen to the triangle wave. As I said earlier, we have this extra stepped output here, which can be phase shifted. Let's just use this one to frequency modulate the VCO that we're using as a clock for the shift register. And let's offset it a little bit. And of course, since I'm using the 3-body, I can introduce some cross-modulation between these two VCOs. On these bottom knobs here, there's phase modulation, so let's just use those. So now there's feedback going in different directions. So that is RUNGLER Benjolin Chaos oscillator with the Schlappi system. Let's now have a look at the Joranalogue system to see if I can make this kind of patch with 2 generate 3s, a step 8, and I think I will be using compare 2 as well for the XOR part. So there we go. I hope this all is still in focus. I noticed the screen on data here is a little bit, well, there's a little bit of a glare, but oh well. So we can use step 8 as a shift register, but to act like a binary shift register, I will probably need to use compare to anyway. I could make square waves out of the two generates. I think if we use this kind of setting, it's close to a square wave, but there's no need for it really. And I think I just want to use the core output here. Is this wise? I'm not sure. No, let's use the fundamental output. Let's take one of these very short cables. So I just want this to give me a gate whenever the VCO is above 0. So I think for that I need to do something like this. Let's slow it down so I can see it. It doesn't really matter what the settings are on compared to, at least not with bipolar signals. As long as there is some kind of gate and it's kind of symmetrical, I think it will work. Okay, so let's just try it. So yeah, I need to explain. I will be using this VCO as the input for my shift register, which means it will go in here. And I will be using this one as a clock, so it doesn't really matter here that it's not a square signal. I can just send it in there. Maybe you can see it. Let me slow this down. You can see how this steps through the 8 steps in step 8. Okay, so let's turn this up. Let's use a regular output here for now as an input here. The reason I'm going through compare to, which in essence just makes gates out of my VCO, is simply because I want these different stages to be gates and not dependent on the level of the VCO. I just want it to be dependent on the frequency of the VCO. But I will bring them down a little bit just so I can add them together without having to attenuate them too much. So I don't have a mixer in my Joranalogue system, but I will just use well, a third-party mixer. So now I can take these analog, oh, apologies for the shaking of the camera. I'll just use, well, I want to use the 4 last stages actually. So let's just add these together really quickly. And let's see if I can bring this into data. No, this is not giving us what I hoped it would. Maybe I should turn down the frequencies of all of these. And well, apparently I can bring up the levels here quite a lot. Okay, so if I turn this one down, and of course I still need to flick this to the shift register mode. Aha, that's making all the difference. I could use the track setting. I don't think it matters. What does matter is that I'm using no, I think I need to use the solo. No, I need to use the all. It's a little bit confusing, but here we go. Here we can see the havoc wave output. I'm just going to keep my hand here for a minute. Let's just change some settings. I should change the weight value of every step here so we get a little more of a staircase type of wave. So what I'm doing is I'm attenuating this output the most and this one the least and this one in between. So well, these systems use digital to analog converters, DACs, and that's usually the way they are set up. So the least significant bits have represent less voltage than the most significant bits. Now, before I start turning knobs again, let's connect the output of this wrangle situation to the mixer. And if I now turn can hear a similar type of thing. And the noise that we're seeing here in these waves is simply because my mixer is a little bit noisy. It's an audio mixer. It allows for DC signals to be mixed as well, but well, it's not a precision mixer. Now what I could do is turn up the volumes of the levels, I mean, of my external mixer and just turn these down here. This should give us a similar situation. Yeah, I think this gives us a lot cleaner signal, as you can see. Yeah. Now, just like I did before, I want to use the last bit. I want to recycle this into the input. So I'm going to need to mount this output of the last bit into compare to. Let's set it up like this, and I have to use the XOR output then, which gives us an XORed version of the signal that I'm sending in and the last bit here. So it gets recycled at the input but XORed with the new data. So let's listen to this. And of course now you have additional control where you can change the value or the weight of these bits, but well, I'll just keep them here. So to reiterate, this one is used as a clock for step 8. So a clock for the shift register, and this one is used as an input. I'm making it a binary signal by using compare to, and I'm using compare to mix in the last bit as well to mimic the XOR behavior of the Benjolin version of the Wrangler. So now to do the last thing, that's not the last thing, but I need to use this havoc wave, like Richard said it, to modulate the frequency I'll just center this one because I think it's probably introducing some, well, of course it's introducing some DC offset that compared to isn't handling, well, it's handling it perfectly, but there was no signal left anyway. And instead of just monitoring the havoc signal, the wrangle wave, let's, just like before, monitor the output of the VCO instead. I'm sure this will get loud. So here we go. And now let's use some cross modulation like I did with the Schlappi wrangle patch. I'm just going to use the full output of the generates to phase modulate each other. Now let's turn this up. Just a bit though. Well, oh well, let's bring it up a bit. Oh, and let's use a through zero linear FM. This one. Don't need the bias here. Can turn it down a bit. Anyway, this is going to be it for this video. I realize it's a bit of a mess of a video, it's a little bit chaotic, but for this kind of patch, I think that's kind of fitting. I'm having some issues concentrating lately. My doctor thinks it's because of chronic sleep issues. And I'm having difficulty with certain cognitive things. I will keep making these kind of videos, but I think I have to take it easy on the deep dives for a while. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Bye.